What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So something has been happening for the past 2 or 3 years, and it has taken the US by storm. But the problem with this is that it has been shocking the American people for the past 2 or 3 years. And I want to explain what's going on, because we are now starting to see some good news, and this is great for us that are struggling. Now, what's going on? Well, here's what's happening. Just today, we got a new CPI report. This is the Consumer Price Index. In this report, it now shows that inflation has dropped from its peak of 9% about a year ago, and we are now sitting at just 4%. This is actually very big news. Now, I want to go ahead and read you some of what is in this Consumer Price Index summary, because this is going to shed some light as to what we are potentially going to see moving forward. Also, I want to just bring this up because this is something that we have seen over the past really month or so, is more states and more counties are considering giving some of that pandemic relief funding, that that $350 billion that they received a couple years ago. Well, more states and counties are actually considering passing legislation that would allow them to fund different programs, whether it's a guaranteed income program, whether it's something like a tax credit, something for property taxes. They're considering multiple different things, and could also mean another stimulus check. So let's just break down what's going on at this time. So here's the Consumer Price Index summary. Let's just start. This is all I want to read. Okay, this is it. Now, first it says right here, the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers, CPIU, rose 0.1% in May on a seasonally adjusted basis after increasing 0.4% in April. Over the last 12 months, the all items index rose 4% before seasonal adjustment. It also goes on to say the index for shelter was the largest contributor to the monthly all items increase. Again, we knew this was going to happen. It's shelter, followed by an increase of the index for used cars and trucks. The food index increased by 0.2% in May, and food at home rose by 0.1%. Food away from home rose by 0.5%, and the energy index, it fell by 3.6%. Okay, this is very big news. Also, says the index for all items less food and energy, this is core, it rose by 0.4% in May, as it did in April. Indexes which increased in May included shelter, used cars and trucks, motor vehicle insurance, apparel, and personal care. Now, this is something we didn't expect used cars and trucks to increase in price, but they have. Then it says the index for household furnishing and operations and the index for airline fares were among those that decreased over the month. Now, I'm not going to go and get into the entire report and read you all the numbers because, honestly, most people don't want to see it. But here's the truth. Inflation's coming down. Okay, inflation is coming down. That's good news. Now, we're seeing, again, less inflation. We're not seeing deflation, we're seeing less inflation. Okay, disinflation. But here's what I want to go over. And this is why this is such a big deal. Okay? Because right now we saw inflation go from almost 5%, we're now at 4%. A year ago we're at we're up at 9%, and now we're down at 4%. So we've gone down 5% in 1 year. But here's what's going to happen next month. Okay, in July, we are going to go from, and let me see if I can pull up a little chart, kind of give you an idea. Okay, but what's going to happen? Look at this right here. So look at this chart right here. Okay, this right here, this shows what inflation was. Okay, so a year ago, we were sitting at 9%. Okay, this is why this is such a big deal. Because now we're sitting at 4%. But guess what? What happened between May and June, okay, And again, this is why it's such a big deal. What happened between May and June is it went from 8.2 in April, May 8.5, then 9% in June, and then it started coming down. In July, it went to 8.5. Here's the thing. Being that we had this spike right here, chances are if we see the CPI report come in next month and all things are pretty flat, guess what? Inflation, or this number right here, is likely to drop substantially. We could be in the low 3s or possibly in the upper 2% range. That's why this is such a big deal. And I bring this up because if you think about this, if you look after the year-over-year inflation numbers, being that we went from a peak a year ago and then we're going to fall all the way to this bottom, or hopefully it's going to keep going. The good thing about this, and also the troubling thing, is we're going to see this number drop. It's likely going to be in the low 3s or the upper 2s. If it is, okay, just again, keep this in mind. People are going to start thinking things are good. They can get back to normal. They can go and afford a house now because, okay, inflation's dropping off. Doesn't mean that the housing market's dropping. Doesn't mean it's going to collapse. No. Because what's happening at this time is that's just our CPI report. That's not the federal funds rate. But on the back heels of that, what we could see is the Federal Reserve come out and think, okay, we're actually doing a pretty good job. We understand what has happened. We've raised rates. It's slowed down in inflation. It's slowed down our economy. That's good. So now we can put a little pause on. We can wait. We can see what, if we just hold rates where they're currently at for the next, possibly 3 to 6 months, and then we will start to lower rates. So this is actually good news leading into 2024 because we could actually see rates start to decline. And if rates decline, this means borrowing will be much cheaper. So you can go buy a car, you can go buy a house, you could just go and spend money on a credit card. It would be less expensive. That's good news. But here are some of the numbers that we do need to look at moving forward. Okay, food prices have gone up 6.7% year over year. That's something that we need to look forward to. Not like it's exciting to see, but this is something that we need to understand because what's one of the things you cannot live without? Food. So it's gone up 6.7%. It's because people cannot get away from that. It's not like a used car or truck. You have to buy food. Shelter is another one. It's gone up 8%. Shelter is something that you can't get away from. You have to have a place to live. Transportation services are up 10.2%. And since we're getting to the summer months, airline fares are actually down 13.4% from a year ago. So that's actually really good news there as well. Now, let's talk about what the Fed could do, okay? Because if we see inflation fall down into the upper 2% range, okay, for multiple months, this could likely be a sign that the Fed has done their job and they could begin cutting rates. But it cannot happen too early. They cannot be too early to this party because if they do and they start cutting rates too soon, this is actually going to fuel additional spending. And if that happens, just keep this in mind, that's actually going to put more upward pressure on inflation so we can drop into the 2s, but then it could quickly go back up. That's not what we want, okay? So if the Fed decides to start cutting rates, this is going to be a huge boost to households because, again, many households are still struggling with rising prices on everything and with little spending power because the majority of U.S. households do have a credit card, and we have gone from using a credit card for emergencies only to now we're using credit cards for just everyday spending. And I've said this before as well, and this is one thing I just want to bring up. The states have billions and billions of dollars in unused funds from the pandemic funding that they received a couple years ago. They have been waiting. They're waiting to see if the federal government steps in and does anything. They're waiting to figure out if their state is going to struggle, if they need additional assistance here or here. And guess what? If we don't see this issue continue, inflation drops, the good news is we now have the ability to use some of that money. So just keep that in mind, that if the problems that states are having start to go away, this is actually good news, because now they can take that money that they've been saving and just been holding, and they can start pushing that money into their communities to make sure that you, or lower income households, or just the people that actually need it, get the money that they could use. So we'll see what happens moving forward, but that is what we know at this time. As always, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.